Hi guys, welcome to Polyphonic Tarot. My name is Prince of Cups 518, and I'm here today to do more of our sword suit here. Today we are getting to the Six of Swords. So, and also happy 4th of July weekend to all my fellow American subscribers and all that. I hope you enjoyed your holiday yesterday or today or whenever you and your family are celebrating it. I wish you a happy holiday. But anywho, and if you live on the East Coast, I hope you're dry from yesterday because it was not a pleasant 4th of July on the East Coast. But anywho, today we're going to be talking about the Six of Swords. So we are finally recovering from the Five of Swords. The Five of Swords was pretty bleak, as we remember. The Lord of Defeat, which is not a great card. And in this card, and of course, with the 4 and the 5, we've been dealing a lot with, well, the nature of the individual as opposed to the collective. I think that's really the big theme of the sword suit in general, but particularly once we go below the abyss, after we leave the number 3 and go anywhere 4 on down, we start to get very almost political definitions or divinatory meanings for these cards, particularly 4, 5, and I suppose 6 as well, but really the entire ethical triangle, as it's called, of Chesed, Geburah, and Tiferet in the suit of Vav, in the suit of swords, is pretty centered on this idea of the us versus them, or the individual versus everyone else, and how you interact with that collectivity as an individual. And of course there are different ways and modes that we interact with other people, and politics and law are really one of the defining ways in which we do that. You know, laws and government tell us, generally speaking, how we should treat other people, you know, the mechanics of society. And that's really what the sword suit is all about. So with the 4, we talked a lot about how the 4 was about an attempt to reconcile, an attempt to create balance and almost stagnation to a degree, but mostly was an attempt to create stability between forces that are technically in opposition to each other. It's an attempt to stabilize those things so that they don't get out of hand. And in doing so, it sort of limits what each of those individual energies can do. And it is the card of government predominantly, really, you know, systems of government and authority. And the 5 of Swords, was really about how in some ways that can become problematic, really, particularly, well, with the 7, we'll get to that even more so. But with the 5, we talked about how it was associated with betrayal and sort of weakness overcoming strength, and weakness predominantly having to do with emotional factors. So the 5 of Swords really is about the individual, the force of the individual being really thrown down kind of violently in the 5 of Swords, in a similar way that the individual tries to assert itself in the 5 of Wands. The 5 of Swords is sort of the darker, grittier version of the 5 of Wands, in that there is definitely confrontation here, but whereas the 5 of Wands did it in a way that had no particular malice in it, the 5 has malice. So we've gone through all of this kind of gook, and we arrive at the 6 of Swords, and the 6 really attempts to rebalance us and restabilize us. And this is sort of an oxymoron, considering the fact that the swords are such a changeable suit, almost more so than the earth suit, which is very much associated with change. But the air suit is particularly mercurial. And that is a good word for this card, considering that it is Mercury in Aquarius. And this is what he says about it. The Tiferet shows the full establishment and balance of the idea of the suit. This is particularly the case with this card, as the intellect itself is also referred to the number 6. Mercury in Aquarius represents celestial energy influencing the cherub of the man, thus showing intelligence and humanity. So, yeah, that's. There is much more than this in this symbol. The perfect balance of all mental and moral faculties, hardly one, and almost impossible to hold in an ever-changing world, declares the idea of science in its fullest interpretation. And then he talks about how the swords all point in the picture towards the center of the rose cross in the middle. And the rose cross, for those of you who don't know, is an old Hermetic symbol that essentially that basically represents the idea that every human being is an expression of the one source, pinned to a specific condition, pinned to the conditionality of space and time. It's kind of the best way to explain it in under a minute. So it represents really the individual's connection to the universe around them, and that has a tremendous amount of import for this card. This card, I always see this card, you know, in the Pamela Coleman Smith version, it's the picture of the woman and her child in a boat, and they're being steered to an island or something or other. They're making some kind of journey by boat. And the traditional interpretation is that it's sort of the it gets better card, that, you know, whatever turmoil you've been going through, the Six of Swords represents a reprieve from that. But I've always seen, because of the title of the card being science, I think it's important to see the Six of Swords really as the card that kind of best defines human intelligence at its most balanced function, basically. With the influence of Mercury in Aquarius, Mercury, of course, gives us intelligence, and it also gives us, in this case, being, you know, a very balanced, very good card, it gives us this idea of creative willpower and sort of magical will, intelligence, wisdom, all those things come into this. And being associated with Aquarius and this, the Sephira of Tiferet, which is so human-centric, really, all of these ideas come into this definition of the card having to do with human cognitive processes. And I think being the most balanced, you know, it is a good definition for science, meaning science in this case is defined as really the attempt to grow and learn through different life experience. It's sort of a diminutive version of the Judgment card that is about looking back and reevaluating where one has come from and reevaluating one's decisions and how that has translated into your current reality. The Six of Swords is similar to that, in that it does have to do with sort of evaluation, and trial by error is really how I've come to see this card. Being willing to take the good with the bad and to look at both sides. It's a willingness to look at both the positive and the negative and not just take one or the other. And I think that is a huge part of being, not only being human, but of figuring out who one really is as an individual. And I think that that's the whole purpose behind having that rose cross on this card, is that this card is suggesting that to live as a human being is to go through this process of ups and downs in order to learn about oneself, in order to experiment with one's being, to sort of work with both good and bad, and to have the mental capacity to solve problems and unpack things and wrestle with difficult concepts. And it's by doing that that we are able to make crappy situations better. You know, it's science in general, as a human principle, as a desire to know things, and as a will to curiosity. Really, all of these things seek to improve one's situation. You know, thought processes like that are used to improve the human condition, and coming out of the Five of Swords like that, I think that that makes a lot of sense. So when you get this card, it's kind of tricky. I think this card represents mental clarity in the same way that the Ace of Swords does, but it has gone through a lot more. It obviously is not as fresh as the Ace of Swords is, excuse me, which is all brand new energy. The Six is good energy, but it's gone through a bumpy ride. You know, we've already gone through the Three of Swords, and we've already hit the Five of Swords. So at this point, the energy of air has already dealt with some level of contamination, and this is the first moment, and really the last moment for the entire suit, that we get any concept of balanced, in control energy. Everything else, even on the middle pillar, it only gets worse on the middle pillar. I mean, the Nine of Swords is horrible, and the Ten of Swords is even worse. So, you know, the swords from here on out, it doesn't get any better. The Six of Swords is, in some ways, the best card of the sword suit, just because I think that it has a level of awareness to it, and more, it's a little more aware of itself. It's a little less lost, like in the Three of Swords. The Three of Swords is so, the Three and the Five of Swords both are pretty emotional, and are pretty just restrictive in general. And whereas this has both restriction and expansion, and it is more of a regulated attempt to explore consciousness. So it's a card that when you get it in a reading, it does represent, to a degree, you know, the person trying to figure things out for themselves, with a trial and error approach, having a very logical approach to their situation, and it can mean just a reprieve of some kind, some situation in which things are getting better for the querent. You know, they've had, like I've been saying, ups and downs. They've hit some bumps lately, but it is getting better. They're starting to figure it out better. They're starting to figure out what it was that they were not quite able to connect with or understand the first time, and they're learning to use it to their advantage. They're learning to understand it. They're learning to deal with it, and they're learning how they specifically, as an individual, can deal with it. And so it's a pretty... It's a kind of abstract card, and you kind of have to ask the querent what's up with it in a way, unless you've got other cards that modify it in a certain way. But it does represent intelligence. It represents wisdom and all those things. But mostly it represents fairness. Impartiality is huge with this card, and a willingness to learn, curiosity. And all those virtues that make human beings interesting and inventive and that sort of thing, and survivors too, to a degree. So that's about it for the Six of Swords. I will be getting to the Seven of Swords soon. We're almost done, sort of in the latter half of the sword suit, and then we will eventually move on, of course, to the Pentacle suit. So let me know what you guys think. If you like this, please like the video, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. And share it somewhere on a blog if you'd like. I'm okay with that. That's cool stuff too. So yeah, and you can order a reading from me as always at my website, polyphonictarot.com. Be sure to check that out if you haven't already. And thank you guys for checking in today. I will catch you guys around. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.